From the end of the 8th until the beginning of the 11th century, the Scandinavian region was home to the seafaring Vikings. They were well known for their commerce, exploration, and raids on other nations in Europe, including France and England. Due to their expertise in shipbuilding and navigation, the Vikings were able to travel large distances and establish settlements in places like Greenland and North America. The deadly reputation of the Vikings on the battlefield was well known. They were adept fighters who could deal tremendous damage with a variety of weapons, including swords, axes, spears, and bows. They frequently fought without mercy, dealing the greatest amount of damage and killing a large number of their foes with their weapons. But why did the Vikings fight with such fearlessness, unafraid to die in battle? Old Norse writings about the Vikings are replete with accounts of heroic last stands, eloquent epitaphs, death ballads, and acts of defiance. It was believed that after soldiers were killed in battle, the war god Odin would gather the chosen fallen soldiers at his residence in Asgard, the Norse mythology's version of heaven. The Hall of Odin, known as Valhalla, was a warrior's paradise made of shields and spear shafts. According to Tom Shippey in Laughing Shall I Die? Lives and Deaths of the Great Vikings, the Vikings' wonderful attitude toward death was crucial to their success on the battlefields of Europe. He claims that this fatalistic Viking mindset was a form of death cult that gave them the psychological edge they needed to engage in fearless combat.
Thinking about the death stuff, it struck me that they have a different attitude to losers, because you might say that their whole myth structure is based on losing. You know, at Ragnarok, the forces of the gods and the humans will march out and fight the monsters and the giants, and they're going to lose. And that's a big difference. Ragnarok is not like Armageddon, where the forces of good will triumph. It's exactly the opposite. Funny that. Then, of course, if you look at the hero stories, they're often defined by the moment of death. It's when you've lost that you show what you're made of.
In accordance with Viking legend, a Valkyrie, a magical feminine figure, greeted a fallen warrior on the battlefield. While guiding spears and arrows into the bodies of other warriors, Valkyries protected some of them. According to the Viking perspective, these fateful women's agency rather than military prowess impacted the outcome of conflicts. Heroes who had died on the battlefield were brought by fabled Valkyries into the majestic Hall of Odin. One of the terms you may hear in Norse mythology is Ragnarok, which refers to the final conflict of the world, a mythical event the Vikings thought would take place one day. The gods and their human friends will march out in it to battle the trolls, the monsters, the frost giants, and the fire giants. Odin would fight with his Einherjar as they made their way through Valhalla's 540 doors at Ragnarok. Out of each, 800 Einherjar would emerge, ready to defend Asgard from the advancing forces of chaos.
Odin always lets you down. He has his favorite heroes, but he will always betray them, and they will always be killed. And the reason for that is he wants them in his hall, Valhalla, because he doesn't know when Ragnarok will happen. And whenever it happens, he wants his team, his army, to be at full strength.
Odin is aware that Ragnarok will take place, His Einherjar in Valhalla prepare for the occasion by fighting every day. Those who died in these fights were swiftly raised to life, as described in the Poetic Edda. A Viking warrior's participation in the wars at Valhalla permitted him to extend his mortal life and train for the final battle alongside the war god Odin. Although not all Viking warriors were allowed entry into the legendary Valhalla, poems from the Norse era describe heroes who were thought to have received the honor. The poem Erksmal, which was written in the year 954, is dedicated to the 10th century Norwegian king Erik Bloodaxe. The poem portrays the king's life of warfare, attacking the European coastlines, and Odin's preparation for his death. Another Viking sagas is about Håkon the Good, who was the king of Norway from 934 to 961. This saga describes the preparations for his entry into Valhalla. Vikings were renowned for their valor in combat and readiness to sacrifice themselves for their beliefs. They had the notion that if they perished in combat, they would enter the legendary Hall of Valhalla, which was controlled by the deity Odin. Warriors who lost their lives in combat would get eternal rewards in Valhalla, where they would feast, fight, and drink. The ability to face death fearlessly was a result of the Vikings' faith in a hereafter where they would be able to carry on fighting and feasting alongside their fellow warriors. Additionally, Vikings were taught to value honor above all else and to accept death as a natural part of life from an early age. The ultimate act of bravery and honor was to die in battle, and it was disgraceful to display any hint of cowardice or weakness. Viking warriors gained a sense of confidence from their cultural heritage, making them fearless and formidable foes on the battlefield. In addition, the Vikings placed a high value on brotherhood and community. Strong friendships were forged between fighters and their allies, and it was because of these bonds that the idea of dying in combat was more tolerable. The camaraderie and loyalty shared by warriors generated a profound sense of purpose and belonging, and dying by the side of one's comrades in arms was viewed as a great and honorable way to depart. In conclusion, Vikings weren't afraid to die because they believed in an afterlife where they could continue to fight and feast, valued honor above all else, were raised to view death as a natural part of life, and had a strong sense of community and brotherhood that made dying alongside their comrades an acceptable and even desirable outcome.